Welcome back. We're going to continue with trig functions of any angle part 2, quadrantal angles. If you remember, these are the angles that appear on the axes: 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees. Just in way of review, quadrantal angles, I draw my axes. 0 degrees happens on the right side of the x-axis. 90 degrees is the vertical y-axis. 180 degrees is the left side of the x-axis. 270 is the negative side of the y-axis. For now, we are only going to be worried about finding sine, cosine, and tangent of these. We will talk about the reciprocal functions later. So let's get started with a little review. In the last video, or actually the first video, this is the third, on the first video we talked about drawing a line from the point in whatever quadrant we're in to the origin and labeling that XY. So we've done that here. But now we're going to do something a little more special, and we're going to say that we don't know what XY is in particular, but we do know that the hypotenuse, which we call R, is equal to 1. So we're going to set that equal to 1. Now, if I have the radius is equal to 1, and I just rotate that from where it is down to the x-axis, then I'm going to say that theta equals 0. And R equals 1, because that didn't change. All it did was just rotate from where it was in quadrant 1 down onto the x-axis. So my point xy is going to be 1, 0. So in this case, the x value is going to be the same as the hypotenuse. And that's only because our angle has gotten so small that the hypotenuse and the side x turns out to be the same thing. So this is going to be real important for what we're going to be doing with our quadrantal angles. So let's say now we know that the sine of 0, we know that's y over r from our previous videos. And if I substitute 0 for y and 1 for r, I get that's equal to 0. Remember, when you have 0 in the numerator and a number in the denominator, the value is 0. On the other hand, if you have a number in the numerator and 0 in the denominator, that's undefined because we cannot divide by 0. So let's look at cosine. Cosine of 0 is going to be x over r, and x is 1 and r is 1, so cosine of 0 degrees is 1. Okay, now let's talk about tangent. Tangent of 0 is going to be y over x, and y over x is going to be 0 over 1, which is 0. So we have sine of 0 is 0, cosine of 0 is 1, and tangent of 0 is 0. Now let's see how this goes with the other quadrantal angles. So I've drawn my set of axes, and I am going to do a box fill in here to keep us straight and actually be able to put this into some kind of a table. So I have 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees. And I'm going to put those over top of my boxes. Okay, so we already know, we've already calculated sine of 0 and cosine of 0 and tangent of 0, so just fill that in. Now let's talk about the 90 degree numbers. In the 90 degree numbers, if r equals 1, I'm going up 1 on the y-axis. That puts me at 0, 1. So x is 0 and y is 1. So that means the sine of 90 degrees is going to be y over r, which is going to be 1 over 1, which is 1. Simple enough. Okay, what about cosine? Cosine of 90 is going to be x over r. X is 0 and r is 1, so 0 over 1 is 0. The tangent of 90 degrees is going to be y over x. Y is 1, x is 0, so we have a little problem here. So the tangent of 90 degrees is undefined. It's infinitely large. We can't even put a value on it, so we say that it's undefined. Okay, so let's put that into our box. Sine of 90, cosine of 90, tangent of 90. All right, let's erase this so we can go on to the next one. Now we have 180 degrees. 180 degrees, if r is 1, that puts our xy point at -1, 0. So let's take a look. Sine of 180 is going to be y over r, which will be 0 over -1, which is 0. We don't have -0. 0 is 0. All right? Cosine of 180 is going to be x over r. X is -1, r is 1. So it'd be -1 over 1, which is -1. And our tangent of 180 will be y over x, which is 0 over -1, which is 0. So there we have sine, cosine, and tangent of 180. Let's put that down here into our box. And once again, let's erase what we have here so we can work with 270. 270, our point is going to be 0, -1. That's going to be our x and y. R is 1. So sine of 270 is going to be y over r, which is -1 over 1, which is -1. And our cosine of 270, it will be x over r, which is 0 over 1, which is 0. And tangent 270 will be y over x, which is -1 over 0, which is undefined. So sine of 270, cosine of 270, tangent of 270. If I erase that, I also want to remember that 0 degrees is 0 pi radians, 90 degrees is pi over 2 radians, 180 is pi radians, and 270 is 3 pi over 2. You need to start being able to think in radians and think in degrees at the same time. Okay? Next is reference angles. See you then.